have to do is read the signals that they're giving to you. But not all of us do that, do we? And so since that day, I've tried to read signals that college students emanate. When a student that is a good student suddenly does not perform that way. When a congenial student suddenly becomes less than that. When one who used to greet me in the hallway turns the other way. When their appearance changes. Those are signals to be read. I once had a secretary, a gifted secretary, and if I had been smart enough to read the signals, I wonder what could have been different. At first, I noticed she wasn't looking quite as sharp as usual when she came to work. And then she seemed to be kind of distracted about her work, and she'd been so terribly efficient. And then the work wasn't getting done on time, and then the work wasn't being done right, and then there were some irregularities taking place that had never happened before. If I had only read the signals. And I have spent many a time wondering, if I had read the signals, would she be in a suicide grave today? Now, in churches and in families and in communities, my dear friends, let's learn to read the signals. People are telling us there's something wrong. And it isn't just among the non-Christians either. But then, having read the signals, let's get ready to reach out and offer to them all of the resources necessary in order for them to cross the bridge back again. And I haven't time to develop this morning, but I just want to say there is one tremendous need that has to be met, and that is the ego problem of the alienated individual. Somehow those of us who are reaching out have to help that person overcome the shame and the embarrassment or whatever else may be there that would block the way from coming back. Do you know this morning the book of Esther would have been drastically different had Esther not read and had she not reached out? Well, that now brought the second letter, and that was Mordecai's response to her. And the reference for that letter is in chapter 4, verses 7 and 9. And he had three things to say to her. He said, first of all, read. I'm sending you a copy of a law that's been disseminated. I want you to read it. You love to read letters, don't you? And I've watched people read letters. And it's interesting to see as they read along, their expression changes and the smile comes across their face and a light comes in their eye. Unless it's a different kind of a letter. Unless it's bad news. And I guess most of us don't get letters except from the IRS and other organizations that we expect bad news. IRS means Infernal Revenue Service. But to get a letter with unexpected bad tidings. Tell me this morning, do you think, by the farthest stretch of imagination, do you think Esther could have ever dreamed up what Mordecai was writing her about? I think it hit her like a ton of bricks. To be reading along, wondering in her mind, what's wrong with Mordecai? What can I do to help him? And suddenly the immensity of what she was reading dawned upon her. My people in one devastating day of genocide are going to be destroyed. And I am a Jewess. And I will be destroyed as well. Oh, what an impact to read that letter. And Mordecai, I said, I want you to do something else. I want you to not only read, but I want you to reveal yourself. Tell them who you are. Because you see, up to this point, her Jewishness had not been revealed. And that intrigues me. I really can't understand Haman not knowing she was a Jewess. But he didn't. We'll come to that as we get to the end of the story. And I say that because I have more confidence in the palace grapevine than that. I'm thinking about all of those twittering ladies who wanted to be queen and didn't make it. And when the word came back, sorry ladies, you lost out. Lost out to whom? To Esther. She's not one of us. Where'd she come from? What's her background? Who in the world is Esther? She is a Jewess. She's one of those captives. Are you going to tell me, ladies, that that word wouldn't be throughout the city before sundown? Every one of those disgruntled women would go out and tell it. The king settled for a Jew. And how in the world that knowledge missed Haman, I don't know. I have a suspicion. I think that bully was so despised that they didn't tell him, hoping that he'd trap himself. Now, as Brother Lohman said to me this morning, that's not in the Bible. You can't prove that it's wrong, and so I can say that it's right. And I just think there's a reason that Haman didn't know that he was dealing with a Jew when he had that horrible decree framed and published. But now she was to reveal herself. And do you catch the nuance of the difference? It's one thing to talk about those people. It's a totally different thing to talk about my people. Those people are going to be destroyed. My people are going to be destroyed. I don't know how many parents I've counseled in the course of my ministry that the greatest honor that could ever come to a Christian parent would be to have your child go to the mission field. I have several sermons that are now filed away. They're not quite as relevant as they used to be. And for me it happened the day our daughter came and said, I believe God wants me to marry Bill Cox, Jr., and we're called to Africa. And I suddenly thought, this isn't as funny as it used to be. But I got to where I could live with it. Until one day they called us aside and they said, we've got some more news for you. You're going to become grandparents. And I thought, you two go ahead to Africa. We can take care of any grandchildren you want to leave here. And then came that last Sunday family dinner. Jennifer, not quite a year old. And after the dinner was over and it was her nap time, I said to her mother, I said, can I take her up for her nap? Normally they just put her down in the crib and let her go to sleep by herself. But that day Grandpa rocked her and told her how much he loved her, how much he'd pray for her, how much he would miss her. And through the tears found the crib and laid her there. Now what I'm saying is there's a difference between saying those people and my people. Yes, sir. And in a few weeks we came to Indianapolis and the airplane took off and Sue and I drove that 425 miles back home in silence, grieving silence. Walked into the door, I said, honey, we might just as well get it over with right here and now. Laid our suitcases down, walked upstairs, took that crib apart and stored it away. Wiped our tears and said, it's done. But there's a powerful difference between saying those people and my people. And if you found that in your ministry, that for months and years you've preached and taught until finally one day God said, I want you to become identified with what you've been teaching and what you've been preaching. And we've found the cost of that kind of commitment.